Hello, everybody, and welcome on the Commerce Show. Today, I'm really excited to receive François-Jérôme Gosselin from Novatize. Hi, François. How are you?
Hi, Phil. How are you? I'm great.
I'm doing great. Really excited to have you today to talk about this wonderful Shopify Unite. It has been amazing. We've learned a lot of new things about what's coming up for the platform, and I'm really happy to have you with us today to explain us in more less technical vocabulary the new release of Shopify. So first of all, François, I know you're the CEO and co-founder of Novatize, an e-commerce agency based in Quebec, but can you tell us a little bit more about what is Novatize and why you're here to talk about Shopify for us today?
Yeah, totally. Well, I've co-founded Novatize with your partner as well, Pierre-Olivier, back in 2014. We're an e-commerce agency based in Quebec City. That's where our HQ still is. Although we do serve many clients across the province of Quebec mainly. So we founded the business because there was a lack of e-commerce knowledge, we believed, as though everyone was talking about it and how important it would get in the future. It seems like there was some lack in expertise. So since then, we've grown up to close to 50 employees as of today. We were a generalist in terms of e-commerce services. And we went to developing much more niche services such as marketplace integration, marketing automation, replatforming services, inventory syncing, and much more services that are specialized. So yeah, and we try to base each decision that we take or that we make on behalf of our clients on the potential return on investment that this can bring. So really what we try to do is to bring value to merchants through state-of-the-art technologies and top marketing minds. So we really think that this is a winning combination to bring value. And so with that, we're often considered as trusted advisors, but we can also execute the proposed strategies, and it's part of our core business as well. And yeah, we're here to talk about Shopify because I do lead the business, but I've always been a developer at the core, and I've worked with Shopify and our developer team a lot in the past year. So it's very exciting to see what's coming up.
Yeah, and we know for the last year and a half that COVID pushed a lot of merchants to set up their e-commerce or even optimize their e-commerce. So how has been the last year and a half for your merchants at Novatize?
Yeah, it was a roller coaster ride, let's say it like that. Well, the way I see it, if COVID had to happen, ironically, it did happen at a great time in terms of the maturity of e-commerce technology, because it happened at a time when merchant had the tools to autonomously build and operate at least the first version of their e-commerce ecosystem, and doing so using solutions such as Shopify and other. So nonetheless, it's been a very challenging year for pretty much everyone. However, it did help a lot in accelerating some consumer behaviors such as online shopping. And this is why we've seen businesses that tripled their revenues in the last year and a half, and their numbers have not gone down since, even though people are starting to get back outside, getting in a physical shops. I think that these behaviors are here to stay. So it was a matter of engaging in those new behaviors. And yeah, so there were a lot of logistics challenges, rethinking traditional operations, and also grasping new opportunities. But it's been a hell of a ride for a lot of merchants. Yeah.
That's nice to hear. And what do you see right now in the market in terms of technologies that are used for SMBs in the e-commerce industry? Like what technologies they are using for their email marketing, their CMS of e-commerce, ERPs? What are the trends if you've noticed so far?
Yeah. So if we're talking strictly SMBs, so and really that can get a large amount of businesses in there in terms of small to medium size, if we're talking startups as well. I think that most people are still looking at technologies such as Shopify, Magento, even Salesforce for their e-commerce platform. So at the core of their ecosystem. And today, of course, we're going to talk a lot about Shopify because of their latest updates. But we're also seeing a lot of investment in decentralized ecosystems. And what I'm talking about here is that people are starting to invest in tools that specifically tackle some challenges that need more specialized skills, or just that have grown to be such an essential part of e-commerce activities that it became product in a whole. So we're talking about marketing automation, like you said. So we're seeing a lot of Klaviyo. Klaviyo has raised a big round of investment lately, and I think that they're becoming a real leader in terms of marketing automation. And there are some apps that are specializing in inventory tracking that are pretty much plug and play with Shopify. So these sort of decentralized ecosystems are becoming more and more the norm. We're seeing people investing also in product information management. This has been here for a while now, but since merchants are starting to sell on multiple channels like marketplaces, their own platforms, other online distributors, they need to just have sort of one place to put all their information in product information, and this would be a PIM. And there are other things as well, as we're going to talk later on, like the new product from Shopify, Hydrogen. So front-end applications that deliver very performing experiences, and independent search engines like that can be like Cofounder, for example. So I think that sums up pretty much all well, there are a lot more, but it's a good overview of some of the technologies that can be in today's ecosystem.
Yeah, and that's interesting to see how everything is evolving. And I also saw that lots of people are going to solutions like ShipStation for their logistic to be able to do it internally, because we had so much pressure on the fulfillment centers, such as what happened in Canada at Amazon. So lots of merchants had to bring back their stocks directly at their warehouse. So yeah, it was really interesting to see how merchants adapted their business strategy and structure through this pandemic. So now let's enter into the Shopify Unite 2021 review. So we know this year Unite was about the new technology, the new infrastructure, but also the tooling for developers. I was extremely excited, and I know you were also about the new release. So we're going to be starting I'm going to be starting actually my questions about the developers side at the beginning, because I know you are strong developers in Shopify front end. But after, we're going to talk more about, what's in it for e-commerce merchants. So few questions about, more technical aspect of the release. But after that, we're going to cover other things. So let's start with the first question. So first of all, big news for the app developers. I heard that starting in August, app developers will have big changes. So what are those changes?
Yeah, big changes all around in Shopify, and I'm going to try to word that as well so that store owners can see the benefits in those, because it means so much more than just capabilities for developers. So in terms of really for app developers, there's been a lot of capabilities extended for their API and their API. So we're talking, for example, to name a few, curbside pickup was added to the storefront API capabilities, as well as international pricing and so much more things that can help them to build this infrastructure with Hydrogen that I think we're going to talk later on about. Yeah, it's pretty big. But yeah, I think that the first thing to mention is that Shopify's mission always has been to provide everything a merchant needs to execute strategies rapidly and to be autonomous with their content. And that's a really big mission when you have one unique product that needs to work for I think over 1 million merchants that now use Shopify. So when they roll out something like this, it needs to work for everyone. So it's a pretty big mission. So what they've rolled out, and I think the biggest thing here is a completely new online store infrastructure. They've labeled it Online Store 2.0 just to give a sort of a statement of how big this is. And so what this offers is really a new code base allowing for much better performance. So talking to store owners now, you've all noticed this sort of Google performance indicator in your dashboard, and it's really tough with Shopify right now to get a really good score. And Shopify they knew this, so they worked on a new infrastructure allowing for much better performance, allowing you to go get that performance score you're looking for, and that's becoming very vital for your SEO performance. So that's really nice. Another thing they did is that they rolled out a product metadata dashboard, so that allows merchants to manage the whole additional fields for their product. So let's say you want to add some dimension fields for, I don't know, let's say you're selling TVs and you want to add a dimension field in your Shopify or any other info on the product data sheet. Well, you had to use an app, so now you can use it completely in the Shopify admin panel and just show it where you want on the storefront. So that's really a big update. Another thing that they did is that they added a new customizer interface. So if you recall, you have sort of an interface where you can drag and drop some sections to build your homepage. So they redid that in the Online Store 2.0 to allow for more flexible content and reusable sections. Maybe we'll dive into that later on. For developers, it's a really, really big change that writes off a bit of that technical debt that you had to have when using sections. There are also new checkout abilities that we'll see later on. Oh, yeah. And like I said earlier, an extended API that allows for app developers for app developers, that's a big change, that you can come and build an app that will inject blocks in your theme, but it doesn't actually pollute the theme. So usually what happens is if you didn't use an app in the future, or if you uninstalled an app, you would still have a bit of code that polluted your code base, because the app would just inject some code that would stay there. So that's really nice. You don't have to do that sort of manual cleanup afterwards, and you don't get that technical debt that just stays there. So
that's really interesting. And for people that are asking themselves if there had been some changes for the App Store of Shopify. Yes, Shopify did release a big gift for developers. So basically, the first $1 million in revenue won't be commissioned. So Shopify won't take any percentage on the top of your sales. But after that, they reduced from 20% to 15% the commission that they're taking on top of your sales. So I guess Shopify are doing that to make sure that they are having more and more developers into the community, and make sure that they still get the edge above all the other solutions. So that's really interesting to see that type of business strategy and move that Shopify are doing to help their developers. The new developer tools are, quite exciting. I saw the Dawn team that is one of these. Can you explain us how, the open source reference team will help developers to build and increase store performance?
So basically the Dawn theme is pretty much bundling all we've talked about for the Online Store 2.0 perspective. So this Dawn theme will offer the developers all the basic structure to build a theme that uses this additional performance we were talking about. It's a completely different structure. So the data will now be the layout will be stored as JSON data, so that's really much cleaner. There will be reusable sections that you can use for different type of content. So this is the thing that I was talking that was actually pretty big. Think of it that every time you wanted to reuse a section on Shopify as a developer, you had to sort of copy paste that section, give it another name, and just made sure it appeared at the right place. So it was sort of a dirty trick to replicate some other frameworks that you could already do some dynamic things like that. So now that you have this completely dynamic section philosophy working in Shopify, it gives developers a whole lot of different options to create dynamic interfaces. And it also helps merchants to just reuse some content to efficiently manage their content on different pages across the website. So it's really a big update for that. It was a flaw that Shopify knew they have, and they fixed it, and that's great.
Oh yeah, it is. And I heard that one of the biggest news is the fact that Shopify now will be plugged or related to GitHub. So can you tell our listener a little GitHub 101 and also what it does mean for developers?
Yeah, well, I won't have to explain GitHub to any developer, I think, but
oh yeah, for sure.
I think that the
other
main
listeners.
point, yeah, but the GitHub is another really fast-growing company releasing great features for teams working on the same project. So, but yeah, I think that the main point here is that GitHub being a versioning application for your code gives the ability to a team to work on a project efficiently. In the past, you had to have this sort of homemade structure to any theme to make it work efficiently, and there were sort of some loss of time trying to get back to where the other developer was, just sort of keeping track of every changes that would be done within a team. A team, not a theme. So now being able to sort of link a GitHub to a project in Shopify and to have different theme for branches, it's become very easy to just work together more efficiently on a theme. Of course, this will have a huge impact on project deadlines and just efficiency as a whole. So it's again, it's just great that they implemented it.
That's amazing, and I know Shopify CLI seems to be also something big for theme and app development. Can you explain us how it will be used and what benefit the developer will get out of it?
Yeah, so I think that the best way to explain that, well, most developers that worked with traditional app development stacks will use technologies such as Node.js as a server. They will use React as a front-end framework and any other tool to manage their data. So what Shopify did is that they basically offered this environment to Shopify developers, to mostly app developers, but now theme developers as well. I think I have to check it out. But basically gives some foundations to developers to quickly start building apps, test their apps, because they now have some data, test data available with this CLI. So it's really just a set of tools that can give you a more quickly environment, a more stable environment to quickly build and test an app and then deploy it to the App Store. So again, and just to bounce back on what you said about like Shopify dropping their fees for the first $1 million generated by app developers, it just comes to that, to offer sort of this modern environment backed with financial incentives. They're really betting big on this, because I think it's, yes, they want more developers, but they really want the top developers in the world, because some companies are going to choose whether to build an app for Shopify or to build an app for Apple or for any other company. And right now there's a big financial incentive as to make money off Shopify, when you see them dropping by half in comparison with other developers, other platforms, as to the fees. So it's it's great.
Yeah, and hydrogen is one of the big things that will change the life of developers. So what is going to change in their environment?
Yeah, again, I'm going to try to address this question as both for developers and store owners, because I think that this, and I think Shopify thinks this as well, because they're going all in on this, and those are Tobias's words. So going all in. So I think it's going to be very big. It's going to become the next standard in web. It's already become a standard in some bigger businesses or other types of applications. But now companies such as Shopify are making it accessible, and that's great. So Hydrogen is basically offering an interface that communicates with Shopify via its API. So it delivers an experience as seamless as we're used to see using mobile applications, for example. So for my developer friends, that means a heavily supported React framework that ships with every component needed to build a storefront connected to a Shopify instance. It's very exciting news because some will say that, as I said, in most development stack, people already use this. But when you're looking at such a massive industry as e-commerce, it takes time and effort to change the infrastructure. And like I said before, Shopify needs this to work for every one of its millions of merchants using the platform and users as well. So it's really a big change, and it's going to be heavily supported. So it's going to be a very stable platform coming out, they said, later this year. So I think that a lot of companies are going to look at that very closely.
That's amazing. We will follow this really closely. So now we're entering into the Unite for e-commerce owners. So I'm more than excited to switch on this part. So e-commerce owners can be excited also with new features such as the extension of capability for the checkout with apps that will allow merchants to do customization to their checkout. Do you have a few examples of how merchants will be able to leverage that versus in the past?
Yeah, totally. So it's no news that the Shopify checkout has always been, although very reliable, but offered very low customization possibilities. So they announced that they will allow apps to populate some sections of the checkout with both content and dynamic capabilities. So we can think of upsells and cross sells directly in the checkout. So right now you would have to do those directly in either the product page, the cart itself. So sometimes for stores that wanted to have this sort of cart sidebar and also a upsell capability, it would become a bit more difficult to do it natively like this, and they would have to force their users to go through the cart page. Although they would want to just stick with the sidebar. So right now you will have this sort of capability to do it directly into the checkout. So that's great. I think it's just another move towards offering more flexibility to developers, but that benefits to the store owners, of course. And we can think of other things such as content that you would like to show on the checkout, such as delivery notices or else.
That's really interesting, and also to re-engage with customers with a few messaging of the company, and
Yeah.
So that's amazing. But we haven't seen any developments on the multilingual or localization side of the platform. So what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think that was I think that people are waiting for this for, well, us being from Quebec, so like me, feel that it's a really anticipated improvement or feature. So they did not address this subject in the event. The only thing, I can't talk for Shopify, but the only thing I can say about that is that to release such a big improvement as Online Store 2.0 and the performance enhancements that go with it, they had to rethink a whole lot of things in terms of infrastructure. They had to redo the whole thing. And so I'm not sure if multilingual capabilities is on their roadmap, or if they want to empower app developers to build solutions for this kind of issue. But what I can say is that if it were to be on their roadmap, they had to release Online Store 2.0 before doing so, because they had to redo the whole infrastructure. So maybe that now they have the infrastructure to work on this type of feature and to roll out on the next release. But for sure, they had to rethink and just redo this infrastructure, because they would have accumulated maybe too much technical debt, and it would have been too big to redo with that. So it might be on the roadmap, might not be. We're still a bit in the dark here, but still not. I'm still happy with the changes they made.
Yeah. And for a merchant that is listening right now, it's still possible to have a multilingual store, but using third-party apps such as Langify to get the data out from the API. Is it correct? So
yeah, that's correct. And to be fair, I think that there is a lack in terms of multilingual. It can be all good when you're having such an out-of-the-box working product as Shopify, and we know that there are some SEO lags here, such as fixed URLs. So you can have a multilingual URLs. You can have the sort of the language code, so /en, for example, but you won't be able to translate your URLs, and it's still pretty basic in terms of the technology they use to just sort of translate. Sometimes it has to be done on the storefront directly, so it's not perfect, but there are ways to have a multilingual store on Shopify. And for all the benefits that it gives a merchant, I think it's still I think it's still the best solutions for small businesses, medium businesses, and depending on your needs, you can explore elsewhere. But it's still a working solution for that.
Yeah, and with the updated storefront API, I heard that there's new possibilities for merchants, such as international pricing and local pickups. Is it?
Yeah.
Is it true? What's it?
Yeah, totally. And it's funny that this question comes after the multilingual part, because if a merchant was if a merchant was looking to invest in its ecosystem and really wanted a perfectly translated store in terms of URL structure and content and everything flawless, they could decide to go completely headless, and so to have like we were talking about hydrogen, so to have a front-end application that would connect to another CMS, and to have their multilingual content there, and to deliver multilingual or internationalized content to their users. So that would be possible. And now with all the extended capabilities of the API, of the storefront API, I think that there's not much left to have a completely extended API in terms of the features that Shopify offers out of the box with their infrastructure, and what you could do using only the API and a storefront application. So yeah, I think it's possible. You can get there, and the international pricing and local pickup are both features that, when they're at that point to extend the API, I think you can say it's getting pretty complete.
That's really interesting. And what are your main thoughts about this year Unites, and how do you see the future for Shopify store developers and also store owners?
Yeah, I think a big question. I think it's
Yeah.
pretty bright for sure. It's been a very, very, very busy year for Shopify, and when we see what they rolled out, to be able to do that with what happened in the last year, it's really great. I think that they're working in the right direction in terms of their mission, and to what I think merchants and developers are aspiring to do. And that is to have a powerful e-commerce tool that can offer store owners on one side rapid execution on content publishing, promotional efforts, and any other daily activities. So you don't need to depend on any technical skills to run your daily business. I think that that's what they want to offer. And on the other hand, I think that developers want the power to truly bring value in terms of feature development and customization. There are no developers that want to do some daily, I don't want to call it chores, but daily tasks that should easily be automated or that could be done with a proper environment, a proper tool. So I think that what they released now is working perfectly with that within that track. I can't wait to see what they release next year, because honestly, it's become a very complete solution to fulfill that mission statement.
Yes, and I'm also really excited to see what's coming up in the future. So, François-Jérôme Gosselin, thank you so much for being with us today at the Commerce Show. And do you have an ending note or something you want to say to everyone?
No, I forgot to thank you for inviting me at the beginning. So I think that will be my ending note. So thanks a lot. And I think, no, Shopify is a great platform. There are other platforms out there, but with their big announcements this year, I think it was worth doing sort of a review and talking this. So if anybody has any question about what they rolled out, what it means for merchants, because it's always very oriented towards developers. I think this year they wanted some store owners to attend Shopify Unite. That's what they said, and I think that they talk through some of their updates in terms of what it could bring in terms of value to merchants.
Yeah.
But if anyone has any questions in terms of what it means, I'd be more than happy to answer that.
Yeah, I'm gonna leave your LinkedIn profile in the comment down the episode. So feel free to reach Francois. It's going to be a pleasure for him, I know. Thank you so much, everyone, for being with us. See you next time. Bye-bye.